Hey everyone, and welcome to tonight's webinar, Don't Just Work, Love Your Work, where we're going to discuss how you can use your unique abilities to enjoy your time at work. My name is Josh Munson, and I'm the program coordinator for Washington State University Global Connections. Before I introduce our guest speaker tonight, I want to let you know that this is meant to be a conversational webinar, and you can join in from wherever you're at. If you look to the right of the video feed, you'll see a chat box. Go ahead and let me know if you can hear me by typing in which city you're joining us from. While you're doing that, let me introduce to you our guest speaker for the night. He used to be in HR leadership doing thousands of interviews with candidates looking for jobs and hiring hundreds of people over 10 years. Now he helps others make big career changes with his company Happen to Your Career by helping them find and do work they love. With that, let's welcome Scott Anthony Barlow.
Josh, I really appreciate it, and I'm a little sad because this is the third out of a three-part series, and it's coming to an end. And I've had a great time working with you guys. So I very much appreciate the work that you guys, WSU Global Connections, and all of y'all have put in to be able to make this happen. It shows. You guys have a very cool program that's going on there. So we've got people joining us from apparently all across the country. I see Paula from Dayton, Washington. We've got people from Spokane. I used to live in Spokane for a while, for about 4 years, in fact. Chicago, Joan in Chicago. We've got people all over the country. So I'm really excited to be here, and I'm even more excited about what I get to talk to all of you about. But before we get into that, I want to reiterate what Josh said. This is meant to be participatory. I'm going to hang around for just a short period of time at the end too, to be able to answer any questions that you have. But don't hesitate to put those questions in as we go, and then I will gather them all together, and then I'll answer as many as I possibly can at the end that you have. We've got Washington State covered. Laura's in Vancouver, Washington too. Awesome. Welcome aboard here. Uh, before we even get started, though, I'll tell you a quick thing that happened to me just in the last 24 hours, I guess it is, last day or two. I got home last night and started having a conversation with my daughter over dinner. My daughter's 8 years old, and turned out that the day before, or actually earlier in the day, I think it was, um, she'd gotten into, I don't know, not necessarily trouble necessarily at school. She's a second grader, but she had a little boy that was in her class that was passing her notes back and forth. And the notes happened to say some pretty inappropriate things. So we ended up having the birds and the bees talk last night with my daughter. And one of the things I realized, I didn't know this was the case. Yeah, I didn't really have a problem with the talk, but I realized that I was still dreading it a little bit. Uh, and it was something that, when I first started thinking about it and realized, oh, tonight's the night. Like, we're having the talk tonight. I'm not prepared for that. I was definitely feeling that dread and not really looking forward to it, and it was a bit of a surprise overall. And you know what? When I actually did it, and my wife and I, talked to her, and we were like blatantly upfront, blatantly honest with how we feel about all that. We had, the birds and the bees and anatomy, the whole works, and everything along those lines, and ended up being a surprise. And regardless about how you feel about when that should happen or anything else, I think you can probably acknowledge the fact that, when you're thinking about that, that might be a little bit uncomfortable. And I also have realized that it turned out really well. It's probably one of the best conversations that I've ever personally had with my daughter, because we were so forthright and so upfront, even though it was a really, I guess you could say, sensitive topic or whatever. Um, we were blatantly honest with her, and it felt really good. And it ended really good. And I sort of realized that there was a weird comparison to how people how people actually, feel about their jobs, and how they feel about, being blatantly honest with their bosses, and how they feel about, what they get to do and what they like and don't like, and all of this sort of thing. And it can be just as awkward to have a blatantly upfront conversation with your boss as it is to have, a birds and bees conversation with your 8-year old, to some degree. But both can turn out really well when you are upfront and genuine and everything like that. So that might be the weirdest introduction to a presentation that I've ever personally made, but you'll start to see how some of this stuff can be similar as we go along here. And I want you to look for that, because one of the things that I'm going to help you understand as we go along is how to ask for what you want and how to be blatantly honest with what you want so that you can actually get to work that you love, and do so hopefully in a less awkward way than having the birds and the bees conversation. But a lot of people look forward to it just as about the same. Okay, with that, I want to jump right in here. And again, don't hesitate to put in your questions as we're going along. I'll make sure to answer as many as I can when we get to the end here. All right, let me go ahead and bring up the presentation right about now. All right. Now that we're here, let me be the bearer of some bad news. Very bad. And I just want you to know that happiness is a myth. And you're never going to find happiness unless, of course, unless you completely understand your strengths, understand what you're absolutely great at, and you're willing to do more to be able to apply them more than the average person, more than what's considered normal. Because normal is in a job that you don't really love all that much. And normal is that you think work is, not all that fun, quite frankly, and that you think work is a chore. Okay, I don't want to be normal, and I don't want you to be normal either. So what does that actually look like? What is the path to finding happiness in your work? Of course you want to find happiness, right? Everyone does. That's sort of the point in life, or at least one of the points in life. And I'm not saying this is the only way to find happiness. Obviously there's many ways that every person can find in their own happiness. What I'm saying though is that everyone, or almost everyone, has to work in life. And the reality is that you're going to spend a lot of time in your job. So why shouldn't you find happiness in what you do? Well, of course, the answer is that you should. You absolutely should. I'm a huge fan of this. I love what I do. I love what I get to do. I love that I get to be here with you talking about this in the first place, and run a type of company that helps people find happiness in their work and connect their careers to what they really actually want to be doing, and connect to the things that they're great at in their life. But why do most people hate their jobs? It's because they haven't found the right one or the right environment that suits their signature strengths. So this is what I want to focus on in this session today. It's really, 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 really simple logic. To be happy, you have to spend your time doing things that make you happy. Now, that sounds really simplistic, right? But in order for you to spend time doing things that make you happy, you need to know what you want, and then you need to be able to ask for what you want. And in order to be able to ask for what you want, you have to understand your signature strengths. So how do we begin? Well, to determine what makes you happy, you've got to understand these strengths. What are signature strengths? The signature strengths are really the things that you're naturally good at. They're the things that you enjoy doing. They're the things that you have experience doing over time. They're also the things that, like I said, bring you happiness in a lot of cases. And that's the basic definition of our signature strengths. And you can go back to sessions 1 or 2 that we did over the last month, and be able to view more definitions on it, or more ways and more paths to be able to find your signature strengths. But like I said, they're just the unique combination of experiences and skills and knowledges and things that you're excited about, your passions, your predispositions, etc. All the things that cause you to lose track of time when you're doing them. You might have heard, being in your flow state. These are the types of things. It's the combination of all of these things that create this set of strengths that make you uniquely better at specific things compared to anyone else. Okay, right? So go back and check out those sessions if you haven't already. And to better understand your signature strengths, I want you to meet Kirby. Now, let me tell you a little bit about her. She worked in an accounting job in the events industry, and she really, quite frankly, hated her job is probably the easiest way to say it. She wasn't growing. She wasn't very happy with it, and it was really kind of the overall polar opposite of what she really actually wanted. And she's going to it every day and just not excited about it. And the honeymoon period had worn off. You probably had that honeymoon period in a different job before. You go for a few months, or maybe it even lasts for a few years for you, but you're not excited about it. It wears off and you realize, oh my goodness, what happened? I was excited about it. Oh my. Okay, so that's Kirby before. I want you to take a listen to this audio clip of her beforehand.
I already felt like it was kind of like a dead end job. I was not happy where I was going. I wasn't growing in the position that I wanted to be in. So I was just not happy.
Kirby was in a job that really didn't match her strengths at all, and she was spinning her wheels just a bit.
Freaking out, probably. Just looking at job boards, crying, and it was a mess. It was, a very rough time.
So Kirby did a number of different things. You can tell she's not thrilled to pieces at all with her role. And she did a number of things to be able to really understand her strengths. We ended up working with her for a period of time, but then she also leveraged a resource called StrengthsFinder 2.0. We've talked about that on session 1 and session 2, and you can absolutely use that. That's something that's available on our website as well, happentoyourcareer.com. You can just search StrengthsFinder 2.0 and it'll pop right up. But that's an assessment she used, absolutely loved it because it gave her verbiage for her strengths and it allowed her to build off of that. But then she spent quite a bit of time getting very, very clear on what she was kind of the best at. And it made a massive difference. I want you to really take a listen here, because I'm going to play you one more clip and just hear the difference in what her life was like and how it was working out for her at that point in time. So go ahead.
I'm hired to do what I am good at, which is reining people in and making sure we don't lose our focus. You don't want to waste your time at a job that you don't want to do, or why would you waste your time being unhappy?
Okay, so here's what's really interesting. What Kirby didn't tell you is that she went from one job to another in the exact same company as when she hated her job. Now, how on earth did she make this transition? And I think that's something that's really interesting. First of all, the way that she did these things, she learned her signature strengths. She started by, after that, taking on just small projects at her company that she enjoyed, that matched her strengths outside of her accounting job, which she hated, and taking on additional responsibilities. And she did really, really well on these. And it was the thing that the company needed. It wasn't just like random projects or anything like that. She asked to be able to do more, and she did really, really well at it. Not a surprise, because she was taking things on in her strength set. So of course she did really, really well at it. This is the stuff that's easy and enjoyable for her. Not a surprise, right? And then this actually ended up leading to a brand new job at the exact same company. Opportunity came open. The company, I can't remember whether it got sold or expanded or something along those lines. Either way, opportunity came up just within months of it. And opportunities always come up. Things always happen. Companies always change, unless it's a non-growing company at all. And then in that case, maybe get out. But either way, this is how she did it. And this is exactly what I want to teach you to be able to do today, and just some ways to go through this exact same type of process. So I'm going to teach you how to learn your strengths. And we spoke quite a bit about that already, so we're not going to go in depth, but in the previous sessions at least, and you can always go back and watch those. But I'm going to give you some other ways that we haven't talked about. And then I want to teach you to find opportunities in your current role that are going to help your employer solve a problem. And then I want to teach you to be able to talk to your boss to get work and be able to do work that is well suited to your strengths, that match your strengths, right? Now, okay. So like I said, refer to the previous sessions, and that'll explain more in depth than we're going to be able to get to today to find your signature strengths. But you can use StrengthsFinder 2.0, just like we talked about. That's one of the things that Kirby used, and it gives you that verbiage for your strengths. And then I want you to be able to take a look at your current job and find what are the things that you enjoy, even the small things, even the very, very small things. What are the things in your day or your week, or maybe it's even in your month that you might do for an hour or do for 2 hours, and you're like, that I love that. That was great. I want more of that in my job. Whatever that is, I want to help you be able to get more of that in your job. Now, here's another way to look at it too. I want to teach a really quick past jobs exercise. This is something that anybody can do. We have people do it all the time. I want you to just make a list of your past roles, past jobs, past volunteer experiences. It's going to be super, super easy for you. Just list them down the side of a page. And then from there, and this is something you can do anytime, you don't have to do it right now, but if you want to, go ahead and get started. Make a list of all those past jobs, and then underneath, leave a little space underneath them, each one. And I want you to just simply start listing what you liked out of that job. And, I want you to find some themes there. And maybe even another way to, even if there wasn't tons that you liked, there's probably still something. Or some of the things that you're better at than the average person out of each of those jobs too. And then you can go through it and start to recognize, hey, what was it that are some of the themes out of this? And then you can find ways to do more of these things in your current role. To be able to do that, though, I want you to meet my friend Ben Fanning. Ben is the best-selling author of The Quit Alternative. And Ben and I we've had a number of conversations, but a while back he came on my show, the Happen to Your Career podcast, and I got to talk to him a little bit about the whole myth of your job in any organization being steadfast and unchangeable, because this is a myth I want him to help us dispel right now. So listen to this clip of our conversation, especially if you believe that, or if you've ever thought that, hey, look, I'm not going to be able to change my job. My boss is pretty set in his ways. The organization doesn't move all that fast. All of these different types of things. If you've had any of those thoughts, or even if, as I've been talking about some of the things earlier on in this presentation, and those thoughts have crossed your mind, this is going to be for you. Take a listen.
I think that there has to be, to get to that part where, okay, now I know what I kind of like to do. But, you had a certain belief that even inside the corporate world where things can seem so fixed, you can start to do something different, even if it's in the same work environment. And I think it's a limiting belief that a lot of people have, that they just can't do that. Like things are just too fixed, or why try, or why bother,
So what do you say to influence those people? Because I do believe very strongly that people have a much larger span of control and influence than they think they do in most corporate environments. I've seen that for myself, and clearly you've seen that for yourself, but that's not the general consensus out there or belief.
Well, sort of one of the fun things I like to do is I'm like, and we talked about job descriptions, but I ask people in a room, I'm like, well, how many of you, can find your job description or know where it is? And I mean, literally maybe 10% of the room raises their hands. And, cover your, earmuffs, HR people. No, I'm just kidding. I mean, HR people get it. People, the job description's out there, but people can't find their job description. And then, but then I say, well, how many people in the room do exactly what's on their job description? And I mean, no hands go up.
Yeah.
So it's like, if that's the case, then our jobs are extremely dynamic.
So what does this show? Well, of course it shows that Your job description is much more malleable than what you may have thought it was. And it also shows that for most people, your job, actually, truly, for everybody. I said most people, but really it is for everybody. Your job description is negotiable. I mean, think about it. Nobody even knows what your job description is. And it changes all the time. And, really it comes down to just, it's what your boss or other people need from you. And even more so than that, I would define it a little bit more specifically. It's actually what your boss and the people you work with want from you, which of course means that it can change depending on your boss. It could change depending on the people you work with, which again means it's much more flexible than what almost everybody thinks. So I want to teach you how to use that to your advantage and at the same time make it a win for your boss and your organization that you work with. And of course, get to do more on your strengths, because when you know your strengths and those themes and you can connect these things to be able to help solve a problem in your current company, oh my goodness, then you get to do all kinds of cool stuff. So how can you connect these things to solve a problem that your company already has? How can you pick things that'll serve the company and make it better? Usually these are things that are going to impact the bottom line. How can you pitch it to the right people? How can you connect it to a problem that you know that your boss has? Then I want you to be able to knock it out of the park. And then I want you to be able to do even more when they ask you to do more, and always be looking for those opportunities. So how do you find the opportunities in your current role to help solve a problem for your boss or for the people that have a vested interest? Well, I want to give you an example. Let me give you an example about myself to illustrate this. So my wife and I, this has been a number of years ago at this point, but we spent a bunch of time paying off debt. That was something that was really important to us at the time. We got really, really into Dave Ramsey's process. And if you've heard of Dave Ramsey before, he's a financial guy, helps people pay off debt, among other things. And through this process, we ended up accumulating a high degree of knowledge and interest. This is something we enjoyed talking to people about. We enjoyed leveraging our other skills and other strengths of ours to be able to help other people do this at the same time. And we noticed that, as for myself, as I went through and got this debt paid off, I noticed that I was actually more productive. As a more productive employee, I had freed up all of this creative space that was kind of taken up in my brain by the debt. And I'd kind of found this a whole bunch of new interests in that creative space I could put into other things. And it kind of made me happier overall. And it was a really, really interesting process. And, we could talk about that part another time. But what I realized is that I was in HR, and I realized that people had been coming to me for a long period of time, and they had been telling me they were missing work because I'm in HR. I'm having these type of conversations and missed work because of different financial situations or things related to financial situations. They were in debt and this happened, and that led to them, not being able to come and work or any number of other things. And I recognized that this was a problem at my company. And I had heard my boss saying in the past that, he really wanted solutions to being able to lessen the amount of time people missed at work, because when people miss work, it lessens productivity. And for the company I worked with at the time, productivity was a massive deal, and people being able to be there to do their jobs. There wasn't a whole lot of remote work going on at this particular organization, but, it meant a lot when people missed work. So I recognized that this is something I enjoyed doing. And I recognized that it was something that could greatly benefit the company. So I started thinking about how my experience in paying off my debt and my knowledge and the skills and the enjoyment I got out of the process could actually be something that could really overall help the organization. So I pitched my boss the idea. I pitched my boss the idea of rolling out actually the Dave Ramsey program, kind of the corporate version of the Dave Ramsey program. Rolled this out, and pitched him the idea of being able to take just a small amount of my time to be able to run this program. And here's what happened. It was a pretty astounding success. We had, a bunch of people go through the program and, ended off paying off an average of, geez, I forget exactly what it was. Is like nearly $5,000 worth of debt or something in a 13-week period, which is nutty. Like that's not a very long period of time. Like over a couple of months and people get rid of, just like smash through $5,000 worth of their debt. So that was pretty cool. So here's what happened from there. It got bigger, and I got the opportunity to roll this out to the entire company in a pilot program. So I started working, with our, and this is like a 40,000 person company. This was, pretty large company at the time. So I started working with one of the executives in our corporate office and a bunch of other people, and we rolled this out in a pilot program to the entire organization. And I got to do much more of this, and more of my role was turned into this. And then that actually led to more opportunities to be able to do more things that were in my strengths, because I got to showcase it in a number of different ways, to the point where like half of my job was taken up by, stuff that was, and I already liked my job before this a little bit, but I really loved doing these sorts of things. But half of my job was these sorts of things after a period of time. And that was pretty amazing. So that's actually how this can work. But here's what I actually did. I took some of my strengths, because I'd already taken the time to pay attention to them and learn them. I found opportunity within the organization, and I connected that with the strengths and some of the things that I enjoyed. I pitched my boss, and I'll tell you how to do that in a little bit, give you some verbiage to do that. And then I knocked it out of the park. Did I have to work a little bit extra? Yeah, of course I had to work a little bit extra to be able to make that happen. Anything worth doing, you have to work a little bit extra, or be able to do it in a different way. And then consequently, guess what? I got to do more of that. Weird. You can do the exact same thing. You have things you enjoy. You have things that you're already great at. And you have things that you're already doing that can add a pretty large benefit to the company. You've got unique knowledge based on where you sit and what you see helping solve those problems. The question is not, do you have that? The question is, are you willing to apply it? And are you willing to move forward? Now, I want to give you another example of this. My friend Mark, and ended up helping him in his job too, and do these same sorts of things. So Mark really enjoyed things like speaking. Like he was really getting into speaking at this time. This has been a little while ago, but really enjoyed connecting with people. Really enjoyed having conversation. He was very, very good at all of these things, just naturally good, to the point where it made me angry because I wasn't naturally good at some of these things. But he's phenomenal, and he noticed that he enjoyed these things, because he already had a pretty good handle on his strengths at the time, and he connected them with a need in his current company. And I want you to hear exactly how he did this. So take a listen in just a moment to this clip with Mark.
When I was getting close to review time, I went in and I talked to him, and I put together this whole binder of like, hey, here's what I did. I had some examples of the work I'd done. And then I said, here's the accomplishments I had in this last year. These are the projects I worked on. And then I had 3 or 4 things that I said, I think I would be really good at doing this. And these were things that I like doing. These were things that I had looked at our department and said, these are things that would help our department get what we needed to get. One of the big problems that our department had and my leaders in the department had was that our department didn't connect very well with the other departments. And so a couple of the things that I said was, hey, I really like writing. I would love to, work with the risk management department. I was in commercial insurance, and so I was an underwriter. And I said I'd love to work with them and write some of the risk alerts that they did. And so that was one of the things I mentioned. The other one was like, hey, I really like the relationship part of it. I like interacting with other people, and I feel like it'd be important for me to get to know the risk managers better and get to know the marketers better, so that we have a good relationship and I understand what their process is when they go from bringing in new business to us underwriting it, so we know what the process is. And I got some really good feedback from that. And they were like, yeah, absolutely. We need somebody to do that. We need somebody that's going to kind of bridge that gap. And so I started doing that in the next year. I got to go to a couple conferences with the marketers. I wrote a few articles. I was the person that when they needed something written, like a letter to brokers or something explaining something, I was the one that they basically said, hey, will you write this letter for us? Here's the 3 or 4 bullet points we want. So I got to use my skills in this job where everybody else was getting to do the normal, typical, boring, same thing over and over a day. I got to do these different things. And the end result was, because I was working in my strengths and doing what I like doing, the next year when it came around for looking at, raises and looking at, my annual review, I got the largest raise of anybody in my department. It was substantially larger. They told me, they said, hey, we haven't given anybody a raise this big. And so I think, working in my strengths and just going to them and saying, here's what I really think I would be good at, made a huge difference in that career and that job that I had.
So that's just another example of this exact same thing we've been talking about. Now, again, what does this show? It shows that anyone can do this if they're willing to go through the process. So let's really quickly review the process. We've talked about it before, but up to this point, you've noticed what you're great at. You have found an opportunity to make your company better. You connect this to a problem that your boss has or that other people that have a vested interest have. And you pitch a trial to the right people here. And then you knock that out of the park. And then, of course, guess what? You get more and you can ask for more. So you can help drive that too. Very cool, right? It's a process that works every single time, or I should say virtually every time, provided you're doing each step in the right way. Okay. So how can you pitch a trial to your boss? We haven't talked about this part yet, right? What does it look like to pitch a trial to your boss? First of all, this is important. Like, I want you to treat it as an important conversation. So set up a formal meeting. Like, get out of your normal area, get out of your normal situation. Like, put time on their calendar, request for time onto their calendar. Let them know that, hey, I'd love to take you to coffee. I want to talk to you about something I think is really important, and would love to get you out of the office or whatever it may be. And in a place where that they're not going to get distracted too, because some work environments, like, there's stuff for your boss to do and people are going to come into the office or come into the area or whatever it happens to be. You'll have to be the judge of what it looks like for your work environment. But then you can use a script to highlight what's in it for your boss, which is really, really important. How is it going to make their life easier? I'm going to tell you a script, by the way, as we go along here. I want you to be able to use a script to showcase this. But again, that's part of the reason why this works all the time. Is it's not like you're doing a big ask. You're just simply trying to make your boss's life easier and showing them what is in it for them. So here's the script I want you to be able to use. Okay. I notice that when this happens, whatever this is, we get this result. And this can be super easy. All you have to do is fill in the blanks or substitute out the words, right? I believe that if we did this a little bit differently, whatever this is, we could get this result. And you can fill in the blanks here or substitute in the words. Can we try this out? I'll tell you what, I would actually be willing to lead this so that we get whatever the benefit is. And that's where we're going to substitute in the benefit, right? So, again, like, it's just going to go, hey, look, I noticed that when blank happens, we get blank result. And I think that if we did this differently, we could actually get, and fill in the blank, whatever result it is. Can we try it out? I'd love to be able to try this out. Not asking to do this permanently, and just asking for a little bit of time or resources or whatever, and I'd actually be willing to lead this whole thing so that's not a burden on anybody else. And here's what I need to be able to make this happen. And I think that when we do this, we can get these results. Fill in the blank. Okay, so here's how I used this script. This was for my story, right? and you can tweak it to what makes sense for you and verbiage that makes sense for you. But I just said, hey, look, I noticed that we're having a whole bunch of attendance problems, and it's related to people taking time off of work to be able to deal with a bunch of their financial problems. I'm getting them coming through my office, and they're telling me about them afterwards. And guess what? When this happens, we lose a whole bunch of productivity to the tune of however many dollars it was. I don't remember what it was at the time, but I believe that if we created a program to educate them on how to deal with finances, that they, as long as they're doing something about their finances, they're going to be able to take less time off or have to miss less work, which is going to save the company X amount of dollars. And also, guess what? They're going to be happier and more productive employees overall too. They're going to feel better about it. We're going to feel better about it. It's going to be great. Now, I'm willing to actually take this on. I don't think it's going to take a massive amount of my time. Here's what the amount of time I think it's actually going to take from me. I'd love to be able to do a trial of this. And, I'd describe exactly what a trial would look like. I went so far in this particular case as I put together a very simple one-pager describing what the benefits are and all of this information that I just talked about. And then, I'd already done all my homework, and that's something you're going to have to be doing too at the same time. You're going to have to figure out what your homework is. You're going to have to be prepared to answer these questions or these things. How much is it going to cost, and what are going to be the resources needed? How much time is it going to take, and what's it going to contribute to the bottom line? Like, what does a trial actually look like of this? But that ending with, can we do this on a trial basis, or could we just try this out? Combined with how it's going to benefit your boss, they're going to say yes. They're very likely. If it's within their power, they're going to say yes. And if not, then go talk to the person who it is within their power and make sure that they understand how it's going to benefit them. After that, I want you to knock it out of the park. It's going to require that extra work we were talking about earlier, but what's going to get you? I mean, for a little bit of extra work, it's going to get you the right to be able to dictate what you do in the future. It's going to get you that trust with your boss. It's going to be able to allow you to do more and more and more of the work that you want to be doing anyways, which is just pretty cool, right? They're going to ask you to do more. You're going to be more excited to do more. It's this big all around win. That's it. It's pretty simple, right? Like, we went through these things. Notice what you're great at, find an opportunity, connect this to a problem your boss has, pitch a trial, and knock it out of the park. And ask to do more, and then you can completely change your job in a very, 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 very short period of time. So, yeah, that's it. That's all you have to do. Now, I don't want to leave you hanging on that note here. If you're not entirely sure what your strengths are, I want to give you another way to be able to figure that out too. And if you're not entirely sure what some of those things that you're great at or you want, we've got another way to be able to figure that out. That guides you step by step through the process. So you can actually go to happentoyourcareer.com and sign up for our 8-day mini course that helps you figure out what you're great at and what you should be doing. Or you can go to figureitout.co. That's figureitout.co. Either way. But what I want to do right now is just take a short opportunity, be able to answer any questions that you have. And even if we don't get to them right now, you can always email me, scott@happentoyourcareer.com, and I'll do my best to answer them after the session too. So go ahead and take a moment right now on the right-hand side and let me know what questions you have. Type them in and we'll get going. All right. So if you have any questions, just like I said, go ahead and you can type those in right-hand side. Sorry, it skipped out for just a second here. But I'm back now. And while you're doing that, I want to tell you just a couple other behind the scenes things too. I told you Mark's story. Mark and I were working together in a couple of different capacities, but one of the things that I helped him do, and part of the reason that he was approaching it in this way, is because he wanted to be able to get a raise. That was actually his prerogative. He wanted to be able to get a raise and get promoted in a very, very short period of time. So I mentioned the whole asking for what you want thing at the very, very beginning. And that was really what he wanted. And at the same time, I'm like, well, why don't we leverage the things that you're already great at and you already like doing? And why don't we, change your job at the exact same time? So he did get a pretty massive increase in salary. But the part that I didn't mention earlier that's probably useful for you to know is it was not only because of his strengths and not only because he was doing the work in his strengths, but also it was because he actually asked for that and set out with that for the intention in mind. And, he went to them, and you heard him describe it a little bit, but he said, "Hey, look, what can I do to be able to make this happen? Here's the areas that I would love to do more work in anyways. And here's the areas where I see how it could benefit, our department, and specifically you, his boss." And he kind of had two bosses actually at the time. So a little bit more behind the scenes for you. Hopefully that helps as you're thinking about this sort of thing. Another thing, if you're interested in more of this, we actually have, and you can email me directly, we actually have an entire both guide and course along these lines called Get a Raise Guide. And it takes you step by step through this exact same set of processes, but in much, much more detail. And that can help you out too. If that's something you're interested in, just email me directly and I'll point you to the right links and everything there. But I really appreciate, again, Global Connections here, taking the time and making the time for me to come and talk to you about this sort of thing. This is something that really, I don't know how much of this sounds like a big deal, but this is really, really simple things that we talked about today. If you're willing to spend the time and do them, get to know exactly what your strengths are, and then being able to have some very, very productive conversations, seek to help and seek out those opportunities to where you can make a difference in your organization, they can completely change your life because you'll get to spend so much more time doing the things that, quite frankly, you should be spending your time doing, and that are going to come easy to you and naturally to you. So yeah, thank you very, very, very much. Now we've got just about, looks like, 120 seconds or so left. So if you do have any questions, I would encourage you to type it in now. And again, you can always email me afterwards too. But yeah. And Josh also, I'll point out for you, Josh put a survey over there. You can go ahead and take that. And if you've got any feedback on the program overall, don't hesitate to put that in there too. Thank you so very, very much. I appreciate you making your time and coming and listening. And if there's anything else I can do for you at all, I just talked about asking, don't hesitate to ask. And I'd be thrilled to pieces to help in any way that I can. And that makes sense. All right. I'll thank you so very much. And I would also encourage you, if you haven't already, go and check out the other two sessions. Josh, I believe, I think those are on the YouTube channel. Olivia or Josh, you guys can pop in there and say where those are at. And those will help give you the prerequisites to this session where, we talked a lot more about how to discover your signature strengths and what that looks like and how you can be able to make that happen. And we take you through some more of those processes too. So feel free to utilize that as well. All right, all. I again, very much appreciate this, and we'll talk to you next time. Have a great night. We'll see y'all later.